Mega Man, Capcom's best-selling franchise. Second best? Okay, third best. Well, one of the best. Mega Man is one of Capcom's greats and stands out with its memorable music, challenging gameplay, and of course, its Robot Masters. In this video, I'll be talking about my favourite Robot Masters per game, starting in chronological order. Let's do the Mega Man and Bass, the Wonder Swan, the Game Gear, and Game Boy titles, because I haven't played those. These will be based on their design, the levels in which you fight them, the music, and the powers you get from them. Anyway, let's rock and roll! Starting off with the original Mega Man game, the concept of taking your boss's powers was something new during the time. The selection of Robot Masters is the lowest, with only 6, unlike the rest of the series with 8 Robot Masters. However, they are probably the most iconic. Now we probably already know who Dr. Wily's favourite Robot Master is, but the one that catches my eye is the Yak Man. His stage is set in a power plant, consists mostly climbing on ladders, while avoiding electric shocks and other enemies. It's one of the original strongest stages, along with the taxi theme that gets stuck in my head. The Thunder Beam is the weapon I stick pretty much throughout the game, as it destroys nearly every enemy and covers the front, above, and even below the Blue Bomber. Oh, and it beats the Yellow Devil. Remember when I said in the last section? However, they are probably the most iconic. Well, Mega Man 2's lineup is the most iconic. One of the Robot Masters even had their own fan song, which was popular during the early days of YouTube. Woodman and Craftsman's themes are catchy, and Fastman's Time Stopper is a useful ability that stops everything around you for a limited time. However, none compared to Metal Man. Out of all the Robot Masters, Metal Man looks the most terrifying, with his red eyes and just looks like a serial killer. His stage focuses on conveyor belts, but unlike Solar Man's stage in Mega Man 10, that throws way too many obstacles at you, the conveyor belts here are better designed, with only a handful of hazards. His fight is fun too, as he throws his metal blades, while the conveyor belts shift left to right. His weapon, of course, the Metal Blade, is the main reason why he is my favourite in this game, as he can fire sword blades in 8 directions that wreck the majority of foes, especially in normal mode, and it costs hardly any energy, making you a force of nature. While it does make Mega Man 2 one of the easier games in the series, the Metal Blade gives me such a power trip that just feels so good. Unlike the lineup in 2, I find Mega Man 3 lineup of Robot Masters to be one of the weakest. The Gemini laser you get from Gemini Man is so slow that it misses most enemies, and one Robot Master is basically a humanoid Beyblade. Thankfully, you cannot go wrong with a ninja. I'm a big fan of ninjas, from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Taki from Soul Calibur, and Capcom's own Strider Hiryu. And Sandman is no exception. He has a white and dark blue colour scheme that is accurate to actual ninjas, and he just looks so cool. The stage is set in the sewers, which really gives me a Turtles vibe, and has some neat sections, including the area where the lights go out, like a sneaky ambush, and a platforming challenge at the end with parachute enemies dropping down ahead of you. The fight can be difficult. Even with its weakness, the top spin, as he jumps and slides all over the place while throwing shurikens. His power, the Shadow Blade, may seem like a weaker metal blade, and it is, but it is far more balanced as it costs more energy, doesn't travel as fast as the metal blade, and can only be fired in 5 directions instead of 8. But it does come back like a boomerang, and it is still a guarded anti-air attack, making it my weapon of choice in Mega Man 3. I'm surprised this series doesn't have more ninjas in its roster. This segment for this strip was the hardest to write for, as for a while I was stuck between 2 Robot Masters who were both excellent in their own right. Pharaoh Man had the better power, as the Pharaoh Sword is basically a spirit bomb that can be fired diagonally and forward, and his design is cool. But I'm not the biggest fan of desert levels. Plus Soulman just gets metal as heck. Soulman's stage is made up entirely of bones, which is also metal as heck. The stage starts off during the day and ends with a sunset, making you feel that you are overcoming these harsh trials. Plus it gets visually pleasing, especially for the NES. Sandman himself is basically the Mega Man equivalent to the Punisher, as he was built for combat. Plus, come on, just look at the resemblance. The fight with the Stallman himself is quite unique, as he doesn't attack until Mega Man fires or moves, kind of like a tactician waiting for the enemy's move. And he also brings up a barrier that will reflect projectiles. The fight can be difficult if you don't know what you're doing, but it's one of the better fights in the series. Unfortunately, his weapon, the Stall Barrier, isn't a good offensive weapon and is more designed to protect the wielder from enemy shots. Mega Man 5 has a few good contenders, like Gravity Man, with its unique boss fight, changing gravity constantly, and Charge Man because
I like trains.
But I immediately fell in love with this Robot Master. Napalm Man is basically Michael Bay's wet dream, carrying explosive weapons around his body and has some pretty cool tank wheels, which unfortunately he doesn't use in the game. He would fire a set of missiles, which he could jump over, as well as chucking 2 napalm bombs in front of him. It's a fair and decent fight. Like the lackluster weapons in Mega Man 5, the napalm bomb isn't anything to write home about, as it takes a while to detonate and is only really useful against grounded idle enemies. What makes him my favourite Robot Master in Mega Man 5 is his stage, how it is structured, and the theme of the level. Before I played Mega Man 5 years ago, I watched Guides and Goomba's video on Napalm Man and how his stage is linked to the 2 T-tunnels that were used in the Vietnam War, which ranges from spikes, mines, drills, and other traps used in these tunnels. Out of any Mega Man level, Napalm Man's stage sticks out the most with its unique yet morbid theme. Mega Man 6. Some of the most memorable Robot Masters, which I had a feeling was inspired by Capcom's hit Street Fighter II with its World Warrior theme. Each Robot Master represents different countries, like the obvious Yamato Man, Flame Man, and Wind Man, but none compared to Night Man, representing the great country of England. I've always had a fondness of knights in video games, from Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins to Fionn Sifo from Tales of Vesperia, and Nightman is no exception. His weapon of choice is interesting, as while I think of knights, I always think either sword or lances. Instead, he is equipped with a flail. His fight is one of the easiest in the series, as he would try to jump on Mega Man and throw his spike ball at him, which leaves him wide open. But having it sealed up is neat, as he will block Mega Man's attacks. A good starting choice. Though the Silver Tomahawk is a good anti-air weapon, the Nightcrosser is my favourite, as you can fire the spike ball in 6 directions, and it comes back to the user, so even if you miss an enemy the first time, they may not survive the comeback. You can also change the spike ball's trajectory, making it useful against enemies above or below you. Did you know? Mega Man 6 had 2 Robot Masters that were not originally designed by a Japanese designer. Instead, Nightman was designed by a Canadian named Daniel Veilly, who signed up for a Create Your Own Robot Master competition. It amazes me how my favourite Robot Master in 6 was originally designed by a fan. I'm not much of a horror film fan, with the exception of classic monsters. I admire the designs like Frankenstein's monster and many variations of Dracula, and when I saw a Robot Master in Mega Man 7 that was basically a robotic Dracula, I immediately fell in love with it. Like a vampire, Sandman flies around in the shadows, ready to snatch our hero, stealing his life force, which I don't think I've known any other Robot Master who can steal health. He becomes vulnerable when he is descending to unleash his power, the Noise Cross. The Noise Cross is an OK weapon that bounces off walls, and when it bounces back onto Mega Man, it becomes a fully charged shot. What makes Sandman my favourite Robot Master in Mega Man 7 is the stage, which is set in a haunted graveyard and then into a haunted castle. And as a great little Easter egg, if you hold down the jump button while on the stage select, the music changes into a remix of the Ghosts and Goblins theme. As a fan of the Ghosts and Goblins games, this was a real treat. Even if the reference wasn't included in this game, I always love castle stages, especially if they are the spooky variety. The stage also splits into 2, depending on how you tackle the pumpkin mid-boss, making it a different experience for each playthrough. Besides Napalm Man stage, the haunted castle in this game really sticks out as one of my favourite stages in the series. Mega Man 8 has an interesting set of Robot Masters and the experimental stages that comes alongside them. You have Frostman and his snowboarding sections, which I know some people dread. They don't bother me too much, but sometimes they don't work. Yeah, Astro Man's stupid maze gimmick. But as a fan of 2D rail shooters, Tanookiplayer Man stage really stands out as my favourite. The 2D rail shooter sections also shows appearances of Russ, Otto, Eddie, and Beat, each with their own abilities, especially with Russ, as he can be upgraded with a spread shot and just becomes a Bird Hill, taking down an Armada. It's a really fun power trip. However, it's not the entire stage, as there are platforming sections that use the wind that pushes Mega Man in different directions, which really reminds me of one of my favourite stages in Donkey Kong Country 2, Gusty Glade. Tendu Man's design is based on the Tendu, which are referred as yokai, and dependent on the tail are humanoid bird-like creatures with long noses that are protectors or as a bird of prey, in which to Tendu Man is most likely the latter. The boss fight reminds me of Storm Eagle from Mega Man X, as they both are fought on a platform that the player can fall off, as well as the strategy of avoiding their dive bomb attacks. They are both excellent and challenging fights, especially for a Buster Run. The weapon you get from beating Tendu Man, the Tornado Hold, is a great multi-tool use for offensive attacks, as well as the ability to reach higher places, especially since both the Rust Coil and the Rust Jet were removed in Mega Man 8. Mega Man 9 has my favourite set of Robot Masters and my favourite abilities from the series. The Dual Satellite is one of the best sealed weapons, the Hornet Chaser is useful for grabbing items from far away, and the Laser Trident is a fantastic weapon that can pierce through enemies, even the shielded ones. Splash Woman was a close contender as my favourite with the Laser Trident, as well as one of my favourite water levels in any game. However, Galaxy Man abducted their spot. Galaxy Man is designed after a UFO and looks at a better version of Astro Man. He is the only Robot Master that changes colour continuously, and it just looks so hypnotic. Galaxy Man's pattern is easy to predict, as he will only do two things: fly around in the air and drop black hole bombs, or fly towards Mega Man. He is normally my choice to go after first, especially since he has the best weapon in the entire game, as well as the entire series, the black hole bomb, which basically sucks in most enemies and projectiles. You can also control its trajectory to covering a lot of areas and can deal a lot of damage to the majority of mini-bosses. Galaxy Man stage is quite fun too, consisting mostly of teleporting pads that launches our hero into the air, while avoiding mini UFOs, as well as robots that will drag the blue bomber to spikes, which is designed to be fair, as the first time you encounter these robots, they will just push you into a wall. If you ever play Mega Man 9, I definitely recommend starting off at Galaxy Man stage. As you may be aware by now, two of my favourite Robot Masters in this video so far have their base of operations in a castle, and Mega Man 10 is also part of that category with Blade Man, not to be confused with Blade Man from the Mega Man 3 DOS game. The stage itself isn't anything to write home about, as it is mostly filled with seesaws, spikes and axes for enemies, but it does have a fun fight against a fort in which you have to jump on spinning platforms to hit its eyes, and I did find it funny after when you defeat the fort, it waves a white flag and then combusts. I do enjoy the fight against Blade Man, as he would jump onto the walls and see him, firing his blades, and depending on the difficulty he will fire a set amount of blades, with 2 being on easy, 3 on normal, and 5 on hard difficulty. Even with his weakness to Commander Bomb, he still puts up a decent fight, as the bomb will only deal a lot of damage if he gets hit by the blast radius, and trying to hit him with it while avoiding his attacks can be challenging in itself, especially for first timers. His weapon, the Triple Blade, fires 3 blades in different directions that can hit multiple opponents, and when using it on the ground, makes for an excellent anti-air weapon. When jumping, the Triple Blade will fire downwards, and it is useful against shielded enemies. I love his design, as he is just a sword with 2 extra swords as arms. No, I don't want to be him. Like, imagine trying to carry stuff when your limbs are swords. Mega Man 11's roster is good, plus adding voice acting gave the robots a bit more personality, even though it mostly came down to puns.
You built me rock solid! Block out! Get wrecked! Dang it! Nobody blocks Block Man!
I found the majority of power-ups to be useful, especially with the addition of the speed and power gear. The Tundra Storm was an excellent attack that destroyed enemies below and above Mega Man and became a string nuke with the power gear. The Blazing Torch just wiped out most enemies, even the shielded ones, but my personal favourite was the Acid Barrier used by my favourite robot master in Mega Man 11, Acid Man. The Acid Barrier is the best sealed weapon in the entire franchise, as not only does it block most enemy projectiles for a period of time, but allows Mega Man to shoot an arc of acid at enemies. Plus, with the inclusion of the power gear, the barrier can even melt foes on contact. This weapon became so useful in stages like Impact Man stage, as well as the first Gear Fortress stage. Acid Man himself has a stunning design with the purple and green color scheme. His fight is fun as he will cover himself in acid, in which you will have to fire a fully charged shot or use the block dropper. He will also dive in the acid below and charge left and right, jumping out of the pool and fire a few shots, and will repeat the cycle until he is defeated. His stage is set in a chemical lab and is technically the water level for this game, as you will be travelling through a set of pipes with the current pushing the player in different directions, while avoiding spikes, which at times ask you to do some tricky platforming over instant death. These adorable enemies will change the pool of chemicals into different colours, with green being the one that causes damage. It reminded me a lot of Flame Man stage from Mega Man 6, except just dealing damage instead of bending Mega Man into a crisp. The Robot Masters are one thing I really look forward to in a Mega Man game, and I always wonder what the designers will come up with next. I hope to see more enemy designs as well as more Mega Man games in the future. My next video will be on my favourite titles in the classic games. Until then, take care and have a wonderful day.